This whole year has been surreal as a teacher because I've not been able to do my job the way I've always done it before. I've had to basically learn a new way of doing what I've done for 28 years, which is very disturbing. I mean, you do it and you have your box of tricks and I have a lot to go back on, but you still don't feel comfortable in your skin doing it this way.
This is Heroes for Zero, a Contec podcast. In this episode, our first of 2021, we're talking Stories from the Field, Part 2. So almost a year ago, we released Part 1, where we looked at how healthcare professionals and those that support them were navigating the new world at that time with the beginning of the pandemic. Today, we're going to check in with some of those people and see how this year has been, as well as hear from some new folks. So let's dive in.
I have been a teacher for 28 years. For the first about 17 years, I taught the lower grades, second, third, fourth grade, and then I made the transition to middle school. So I've been teaching middle school math for about 11 years. And in the middle of my middle school years, I actually changed states. And then COVID hit. So since I have children of my own, they were going to be in school part-time. So I decided I would teach virtually given the opportunity so that I could be home for their scheduled needs, whatever those were.
My name's Larry. I've been teaching 28 years as well. And I started in the middle school grades, and then I went down to the lower grades. I started in a private Catholic school before I went to public school. And then I retired and relocated from one state to another, and I'm continuing to teach now.
For you in the classroom, how have you shifted your teaching style?
How haven't I shifted it? It would be the easier question. A lot of things that we haven't had choice with, the decisions have been handed down from school districts. So in the particular district I work in, children have had to be grouped in pods that are a certain distance apart. They've had to have plexiglass dividers between them. They've had to wear masks from the time they walk in the building until the time they leave. As far as instruction goes, it's really been impacting because, especially working in the lower grades, you have a lot of interactive work. You have a lot of group work. You have children that are working together on single tasks. And all of that is taken away when you're between plexiglass. That style of teaching and that method of learning kind of goes out the window. So it really has become more of a direct instruction approach where a teacher teaches and an individual listens and learns. And we've tried to make it as interactive as possible by using more technology, but it doesn't replace the real brick and mortar classroom experience. So I feel like this whole year has been surreal as a teacher because I've not been able to do my job the way I've always done it before. I've had to basically learn a new way of doing what I've done for 28 years, which is very disturbing. I mean, you do it and you have your box of tricks and I have a lot to go back on, but you still don't feel comfortable in your skin doing it this way. And the students definitely don't either, because they feel isolated. They could see each other through plexiglass, but it's you're in a 2 foot by 2 foot square space, and that's your world. And it's interesting.
Yeah, and your comment about it's taken a while to get used to it. For myself personally, I'm an immunocompromised person. And so my family made the choice to stay home as much as possible. And as part of that, our kids also stayed home and did the virtual program. And so I have a third grader, a first grader, a K-5. I felt like it took us almost the first month of the year before we got into a good flow, even with the virtual program, because our kids are very social bugs. And so for you, Lisa, I assume you taught those 28 years in the classroom as well. Now you're virtual. What has that experience been like trying to start something new here?
I think what you said is really accurate. The first month was, and we just felt like we were in a sinking ship because so many issues arose that we didn't know what was coming, right? So we knew we were going to teach virtually and use different platforms and reach out to the kids and form relationships with them virtually. And those things were sort of able to happen, but we didn't anticipate all the other things, like 30% of students not attending. There's only so many times you can call these parents or email them or text them without it taking away from your instructional time. So if I'm missing 40 kids out of my 140, I don't even have the time to follow through with the 40 when you're trying to create lessons for the other 100. So those kinds of things that we did not anticipate, the first, I would say probably month and a half, just were all consuming. And then the instruction took a back seat. That since I feel like we've totally rounded the corner now. As a matter of fact, like the virtual program where I teach in, they're looking to continue it next year, and they are asking for teachers, and almost all the virtual teachers wanted to stay virtual. They actually had to say, well, we can't take everyone because they're hoping we won't have the same numbers next year in the virtual program. So I was concerned about not being able, especially with middle school students, to form any bonds socially with them. But for the kids who are attending, it's working. Socially, I teach 7th graders, so they're 12 going on 13. There is nothing, and they're lonely, and there's been a bunch suffering with depression, and we get emails from the parents that they just can't stare at the screen anymore, and that's a little, I don't know what to do about that, So you go to bed at night thinking, how do I reach that kid? How can I help that kid? That's normal for teachers. We all go to bed at night thinking about what I should have done differently, and why is this kid struggling, and why is that parent not helping? So the worry part's normal, but what to do about it has been really challenging.
It's the same kind of fatigue in some ways I think adults feel too, because we hear about Zoom fatigue now. I mean, This is probably my 5th Zoom call. We're recording this on Zoom. This is probably my 5th Zoom call of the day. And it's a real thing. And I can't, for my own kids, I see them in front of the screens all day too. And so that's an amazing challenge that you guys have to deal with. And I just applaud you for seeing how much the virtual teachers have meant to my own kids. It's amazing what you do. Like my 1st grade son's teacher regularly will mail him something, or even like he loves to read, and she's really busy just like you are. And she has set up her computer before with her dog so that my son can read to her dog. So finding these creative ways to still teach and connect and bond with kids, it sounds like that's something both of you have been trying to do.
Definitely. It's a whole new form of instruction, and you have to be really creative about it. In my position, we're really trying to cut back on the contact. And so the passing of things back and forth, and teachers, handing things out or collecting things from students has really been minimized. Things have been we've tried to keep things as digital as possible. And I think that's even been more difficult probably for parents of students in brick and mortar schools, because they're not getting the paper communication that they're so accustomed to getting. And it almost feels like a not a breakdown of communication between teacher and student and teacher and parent and teacher, but it's a whole different form of communication that some people aren't able to have, number one. Number two, some people that have it, it's not consistent. So, for example, if I want to communicate with a parent um, and they don't have email, you know, or their phone is down for various reasons. And, you know, usually the communication would be paper going home, and that's not there right now. There are a few teachers I'm aware of that feel a little more comfortable passing papers back and forth, but the students aren't. You know, some of them are actually scared, and you know, when they're between plexiglass and with masks on, it's what we need to do, but it also almost, especially for the little ones, reinforces their fear that I can't pass things back and forth. So the whole strategy of instruction and the whole method that they learn has to be reworked, and it's being reworked in real time. You know, there really hasn't been any preparation stage for it per se. It's been interesting.
It sounds almost like you have some of the same challenges with connecting with the students that Lisa does virtually, and you two are in a very unique position in that, you know, you're both experienced educators, one of you virtual, one of you in the class. Is there anything that you've been able to kind of share with each other about strategies that you've experienced that's crossed over either virtually or in the classroom?
More than you would think, because you know, I'll say, oh, I'm using this virtual whiteboard with the kids, and they can show me in real time the steps to problem solving. And then I'll show Larry, like, look at this great tool. And then he's using it now with his fifth graders. And then he'll come home and he'll say, oh, you know, it was so great. I had this great lesson today, and it went really well because ABC. And I'm like, oh, I miss being back in the classroom, but then I don't have lunch duty, and then he's jealous that I don't have lunch duty. You know, it's funny. It's like the back and forth of what we each kind of recognize the advantages and disadvantages the other one has.
Yeah.
But definitely there's the barrier with the parents is pretty, I'd say that's pretty universal. It's actually much harder to get the parents involved. I think just in this entire situation, a lot of families have other bigger concerns than what their children are doing or not doing in school. And while I think parents are trying their very best, I know that we are, some things just go by the wayside a little bit because there's only so many attempts and ways you can try to teach your kid to, you know, insert a photo and take a screenshot. And, you know, they're 11. They'd rather do their own thing. So we definitely have empathy for the other parents because we're playing both of those cards as well, the educator and the parent.
How have the children reacted to some of these new rules? You know, we're over 150 days into the school year, and so I guess this is kind of developed throughout the year. But how do you think the kids are right now as far as when it's time to hunker down and learn something? What's your take on that?
In school, in brick and mortar, I have to say they have handled things better than I anticipated. My experience with the students is they've taken it very seriously. I've not had any challenges regarding students not wanting to go along or not being able to go along with the protocols that are in place. There have been a few times at the beginning of the year where I had to remind them not to, because they naturally share something where, you know, I'll tell them, sorry, we can't do it. But I'd say after the first couple of weeks of school, it just became second nature. And at this point, I've actually noticed some pros to this whole situation. We've talked as a staff. I've talked with my administration. The incidences of discipline have dropped significantly because children have to be 6 feet apart. You know, they can't share things. So as trivial as it sounds, in the lower grades, a lot of your day is conflict resolution and management in addition to instruction. And when something like this comes along where they're between plexiglass and they have to stand 6 feet apart in a line, you're not dealing with that stop touching me thing, or he's touching me, or she's taking this, or like all of that stuff is gone. So I have found that I actually have more quality instructional time with my students in this environment. But the way the instruction takes place has to change. It just had to change.
They will log into the Google Meet, and then they will turn off their camera and mute the teacher and do whatever it is they want to do. And since they were, quote, present in the Google Meet, meaning we have an electronic record that they're alive, they're marked present. The same with completing assignments. If they just click something, it counts that it's been done, so there's a lot less accountability. And from the teaching standpoint, in a brick and mortar school, if the student owes a test, an assignment, or needs to make it up, they don't get recess that day. I can physically pull them to do extra help, right? I cannot require, I have no way to do that in the virtual world. So I would say that the students who are good students, they're doing well. The students who really need the support and would rather check out than check in, we can't really give them the supports that they need.
For myself or somebody else who's at home just listening to this, is there anything else that you'd want the general public to know about teaching during a pandemic?
Wow, what a question. Over the past 12 months, there's probably been over 1 million things that we've batted back and forth saying, we wish people knew this. We wish people knew this. What a lot of people have to realize is we're trying to do our job as best as we can. But what we're doing is we're also implementing much more grace in the respect that I'll speak for myself. I'm not pushing my students this year the way I usually would, in that I don't know what kind of technology issues they're having at home. I don't know, for example, I have students where I will push out work through them through a platform, and by accident, they'll hit a backspace key, and everything that I've sent them is gone. And so they're sitting at home in a panic, and they can't do their work. So my stance is, I'm not going to come down on that student. I'm not going to blame that student. We're in an unusual situation. So I'll reissue that to them and say, okay, you have another day or two to work on it. That's my idea of grace in this situation. That probably wouldn't normally happen to that extent in a typical year. So I've had parents thank me for that and be really, really grateful for that. I've had other parents that haven't reacted that way. Their attitude is, why isn't this working? Why didn't you contact my child that night so that they could do it? It's different for everybody. And basically my mantra is, don't take it personally, and that's the way I'm handling it right now. So I'd say, what do I want parents to know? I personally understand everybody's situation is different, and I'm just trying to deal with the children and making sure that they understand as much as they can. And when things go wrong, we'll deal with it. It's I'm not going to hold anybody responsible for something they can't control or that they made a mistake with in this situation. And we'll come through the other side.
I would say that the most important thing that the biggest concern I get from parents is, my kid's going to be behind. What's going to happen? They're going to go to 8th grade and they're going to be behind. I've heard that over and over and over again. And I would just like all parents to know, and the general public to know, we're all going to be behind the same amount. And so your kid is not going to be taking away a different experience. We're not going to be comparing this particular group or cohort of students who have gone through this to the children who went before them, and probably to the children who come after them. It's been a unique experience. And I say, not to be overly dramatic, but if we were in a war, if the United States was involved in a war right now, right, we wouldn't be saying, oh my gosh, my kid's not learning enough algebra. right? So you have to kind of take everything, like Larry said, with grace. If it doesn't get done tomorrow, it's going to get done the day after that. And if the kids came in behind from the e-learning in the spring, they came in a little bit behind. So we tried to catch them up to where they would have been. So of course, we're not going to get as far in the curriculum. That's not the most important thing in the world. The most important thing is that your kids are safe, your family is maintaining their health and their well-being. That comes first, and so not really necessarily just give the teachers a break, but give yourself a break as a parent. Don't have the same expectations you would have had a year ago. And it's going to all work out. There's so much anxiety coming, I feel, at the teachers from the students, the admin, and the parents. It's all coming to the teachers. Like the admin's worried that we're not going to perform well on test scores. And the parents are worried their kids are going to be behind. And the kids are worried, even though they show it differently, they're concerned about being ready for the next year. Are they going to send me to 8th grade? I was really absent a lot. So there's a lot of anxiety. And we kind of have to deal with that first. Kids don't learn well in a state of anxiety. So, we try to be supportive and love these kids and show them the best experience we can under the circumstances. And I would hope that the public can understand that.
I think the kids understand that as well. Like I know in talking with my own kids, you guys don't just teach them math or reading or science or those sort of things. You teach them life. And the way that you respond to life and events in life. And I think it's amazing for both of you in each of your circumstances. Just, the pandemic has affected so many people in various ways, but you represent a choice for so many families to be either in school or virtual. So I just applaud both of you for sticking with it and what you continue to do. I know how much it impacts my kids, and how they miss the time at 2:00 when their classes are over, even though they have been on there. They enjoy that time with their teachers and they enjoy seeing those other faces. Mm-hmm. So I just appreciate what both of you have done during all this time so far.
It's interesting because I think if anything positive really comes out of this in the world of education, it's that we've been forced out of our comfort zone, and we've been forced to learn how to do a lot of things differently. And I don't think we're going to go back. I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, thank God we don't have to be like that anymore. I think what you're going to find is a lot of people are going to incorporate what they discovered throughout this whole experience with COVID in a teaching situation. And they're going to continue to incorporate a lot of those teaching strategies and things, because it's all about, well, for me, it's all about teaching to the student, and everybody learns differently. And I found that some students improved with different forms of instruction. Not all students are great with group learning, and they withdraw. They depend on everybody else to do everything, and they sit back. And in this realm, obviously, they've been forced to be much more independent in their production of their work, but also what we've been forced to do in order to supply it to them has been really interesting. And I'd say that's something that's positive that came out of it.
We're now joined by Jane Easler. She's a marketing manager at Contec, and she's actually been a guinea pig for the vaccine. Jane, can you tell us a little bit about what you do, and then what made you decide to want to be part of a clinical trial for the vaccine?
Sure. So I am a marketing manager at Contec. So I work with our different departments trying to get out communication and stories about our products, our brand, our company. And I got involved with the clinical trials here in Spartanburg. Actually got an e-newsletter in the summer of 2020. I forgot which one it was. But in the story, they were talking about how, there were several different pharmaceutical companies working on a vaccine for COVID, but they were looking for people to actually trial the drug, because without human trials, drugs would not be able to get FDA clearance. So I had just signed up. It wasn't for any particular company or any particular pharmaceutical company. It was just kind of a generic, federal, possibly regulated database where I just gave my name and email address, I think maybe my age. And they said that if I was going to be selected, I'd be contacted by email. I wouldn't get any phone calls, wouldn't be asked for money or social security numbers, I guess trying to make sure people didn't get scammed. And so that was in the summer. And it wasn't until maybe November when I actually got an email and then later on a phone call asking if I was still interested. I didn't realize that Spartanburg has a facility, Spartanburg Medical Research, that was actually trialing the AstraZeneca vaccine. And I believe there was another clinical trial going on in Simpsonville or in Greenville, because a friend of mine mentioned her mother was participating in one. So I think there were several different trials going on. But and one reason why I decided to sign up was shortly after 9/11, I remember thinking, of all the different people who had kind of signed up to join the military, but of course I wasn't going to do that, but I could give blood. So when the lockdown happened and seeing, my friends who were in the medical profession and friends, family in vulnerable populations that were elderly, might be in ICU, I knew I wasn't going to become a medical professional, but at least I could participate in a way that I could. So that's how I signed up, and it's been very easy and trouble-free. And, so right now the AstraZeneca vaccine hasn't been issued in the U.S. I believe it's still in Europe and trying to get, I guess, going through their final phases before it's cleared for the U.S.
Have you done any type of trial like that before?
No, I didn't, but my little brother died of colon cancer in 2016, and as he was battling cancer, I know that he had asked and requested to sign up for as many, clinical trials and experimental things as possible. So part of me signing up even for this was kind of his legacy a little bit in, you can't, if potentially life-saving drugs aren't available because people don't step up to volunteer to try them out, and for someone like me who is relatively healthy for my age, I don't have small children, I don't take diabetes medication, cholesterol medication. So in a way I would be a good candidate to try something out. Then it felt a little selfish to not at least try. So
take us through, what's it like the first time that you walk into the facility? What's going through your mind? Kind of what were your expectations for that first visit?
Yeah, so it was, so again, kind of having worked with scientists and lab people here at Contec and in other places, and even just remembering doing experiments in school, the whole procedure, the process that they go through to make sure it's a double blind. So I went in not knowing if I would be given the drug or given a placebo. So there was like a 20-page document for me to read before I agreed to come into the facility. And every step along the way, if I had chosen to opt out, no harm, no foul. It was kind of, I hadn't locked myself into anything. There weren't any contracts or anything like that to sign up for. But I did agree to be traced or to kind of participate for 2 years. So every week I'd just go into a little online journal website and log in whether or not I've had any symptoms of COVID. I thought that there would be a really long, the intake process was kind of what I expected, kind of do a very basic health summary, but it wasn't nearly as invasive as I think, I had to go get my annual physical, and, they asked probably 100 more questions than they asked me for the trial. And the place where the trial took place, I'm not sure if it's like a converted office building, but there's all this beautiful art on the walls. It's really sunny and airy. The nursing staff are always pleasant, and I realize it's because, everybody who shows up there, they're actually wanting to be there. They agreed to be there versus, possibly in a regular doctor's office where people don't want to be there because they're sick or they're with somebody who's sick. And kind of read through all the regulations, read through all the procedures. There was a subset part of the trial that some people were going to be asked to wear heart monitor, armband things. I wasn't selected for that. And they did say that if I at any point experienced symptoms of COVID, I kind of had a protocol to follow for that. But it's been really easy. I think the funniest thing is it reminds me a lot of when I was pregnant and everybody wants to know, the gender reveal. Everybody wants to know, so do you, did you find out yet? Do you have the placebo? Do you have the vaccine? Which one do you have? And I can find out now that I could have found out before once the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine started becoming available, but I didn't. I haven't found out yet just because I haven't been eligible. So there's kind of no point in knowing because I'd still need to take part in doing the documentation to follow through with the trial. So even if I found out I had a placebo, to make sure that the experiment and the validation process continues, I'm still signing up. I'd still need to fill out that weekly report. So
I think it's really neat, though, that, you volunteered, you wanted to step in and do this. I can't say that I know of anybody else who's been part of one of the trials for the vaccine. And as someone who just recently had my first shot of the vaccine, I just have to say, thank you for taking part in making this come to life.
I know one of the newest fields of, I think, medical ethics or medical research has been how traditionally most drugs, procedures, symptoms, etc., they've been normalized on, white men. And that's normally because that's who the test subjects were, or that's who the patients were, and that's who the doctors were. So as we're learning more how, heart attack symptoms in women appear differently than they do in men, or different populations might have different reactions to different things. Well, as a female, not 100% Caucasian individual, it's hard for me to kind of say, wow, I wonder how, it's kind of like, I also felt it was important to represent both my gender and ethnicity, and kind of saying, hey, do we have a broad population of people who have, tried this potential vaccine, and what kind of side effects and what kind of issues and things like that might be associated with it. So I think that was also important to kind of, if we want to have diversity of representation, those of us who are diverse kind of also need to step up sometimes. I'm interested in seeing where, now that I've done one trial, kind of participating in some others, because when I was a poll worker back in the fall, it was because a lot of elderly people were poll workers and they weren't able to volunteer to work elections because of COVID and fears for health. And at the research center, that they said that a lot of test subjects are retirees or people who have time to kind of come in at different times. But because now all their research stuff is going online and we've seen with the vaccine signups where you have to sign up through a website portal and you have to have an email address, that technology has left out a lot of different people. So I would encourage anybody who knows people who might be eligible for the vaccine but might be technologically challenged. That's a great way to help out.
So for our final guest today, we're going to check in with someone who you first heard in last year's part 1 of Stories from the Field, Michael Myers. He's Contec's clinical support manager for our healthcare division. So Michael, how have you been the last year?
Hey, Daniel. Has it been a year? It seems like it's been 4 or 5 years.
It's been a while.
It's been certainly a shift for me. When we last spoke, I think that, it was middle of March. We'd all just sort of gone into lockdown, and because of my travels back to North Carolina, had feeling a little gross. I was sort of that first group of people struggling to go find where they could get testing. It took days to figure it out. And, that was when we first talked. And it's definitely been an interesting year since there. At Contec, we've been certainly very busy taking care of all of our customers, sterile compounders who were even more important even at times during this pandemic. So making sure we could support those people. But I've been with Contec over 20 years, and I travel typically 3 weeks out of every month and would come back home for a month. And I haven't left the house in a year. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, so last year when we talked to you, you were actually the first person that I knew who had a test. I remember you saying that you had to wait 8 days to hear back from that. Just fast forwarding to this year, it's amazing how much has changed. You actually had sent me a video way back then of your test, and that was back when they used to swab way up the nose.
Yeah.
Have you had to get any tests in the last few months to see how that's changed?
I have been tested a few times since. One in particular, when I traveled back home to visit my family for the holidays, I actually drove from Las Vegas to South Carolina. Didn't want to get on a plane and by any chance put my parents at risk. So I went ahead and drove, and then as soon as I got into South Carolina, went and got a rapid COVID test before I'm a little comfortable going in and checking in at their homes.
So just as a refresher for some of our listeners, kind of talk a little bit about what you do as a clinical support manager for our healthcare division, and particularly how have you attempted to keep things rolling over the past year?
Sure. Well, at its most basic level, these Contec items in the sterile compounding pharmacies are being used to help them clean and disinfect the areas where these drugs are being made. Now, these are drugs that are going to be injected into a patient's arm, so they have to have sterility. Unlike an ointment you might rub on your elbow or a pill you're going to take, when you're doing injectable medication, you really have to make that under aseptic conditions. And Contec products are essential in that. And that continued all throughout the pandemic. Now, my role is typically dealing with education. I go out to lots of conferences and conventions, and then would also visit large hospital systems to help train technicians across multiple locations so that they all were using the same best practices and same techniques to clean and disinfect their pharmacies. Now, over the past year, I've gone virtual. I've not really been able to travel to go visit large hospital systems, and all conferences and trade shows have gone virtual as well. We at Contec have done an amazing job of getting someone who's not a tech-savvy guy. Those folks back at headquarters have taught me to be as tech-savvy as I can and sent cameras out to everyone in the field so that we could support our customers when we weren't allowed to go visit them in person.
This podcast is called Heroes for Zero. We originally started it last year to kind of shine a little bit of a light on some of these frontline workers and some of these people who are absolutely critical in that contamination control process. So again, for you, what have you observed over the last year with some of these frontline workers, these heroes for zero?
It's amazing, and I'm not usually at a loss for words, but the gratitude that I personally have for these heroes, and that's exactly what they are, as heroes. They were these folks that worked in sterile compounding pharmacies and all throughout hospitals were very busy, before March of 2019. Their days were full, and this pandemic put a stress load on them. As we went through the summer and we hit that spike, and it would happen in different hot spots around the country, and you'd see on the news as individual hospital systems were stressed, almost to the breaking point. And these heroes made sure that we didn't hit that breaking point and that those patients received care. I'm just so thankful now that the vaccines, people are starting to get their vaccines, and maybe we can lower the temperature a little bit, take it down from a full boil to even maybe a simmer, and take some of the stress off of these heroes' backs.
So we both were able to recently get our second shots. I know we were both texting each other after the first shot and then again after the second shot. Tell me a little bit about your experience with the vaccine.
Well, I'm a person that hates shots, and it's a joke in my family how much I still, as a grown man, squirm and just freak out at the shot of even the tiniest annual flu shot. So I have never been so grateful or thankful to get a shot. The first shot I got, when the woman gave me, I made, I guess, like a little noise, and she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Oh, that was a sound of joy. That was not a yelp of pain or anything like that." And I got the Pfizer vaccine here where I live in Las Vegas. First dose at a place called Cashman Center, and then when I went online to register for my second dose, it was only available at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So anyone who's listening to this podcast, I'm sure maybe throughout the years has been to a trade show at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Before I've only lived in Vegas for about 12 years. So for almost a decade before I moved here, I would come at least twice a year to trade shows at the Las Vegas Convention Center. So it was surreal to pull up in that parking lot. First of all, parking's way easier to get for the vaccines than it is for a big trade show. So I was able to pull up and park relatively close to the building. And then walking into that central corridor where they've got the snack bars, and then you turn right to go into the central hall, which is where we always have our trade show, our exhibits set up. But, it was just concrete bare floor. There were no carpets and no colorful curtain stanchions dividing up the booths. It was just a giant empty concrete hall. But that is where I went to get that second shot. And it definitely was surreal to be in those surroundings.
Yeah, I've been to that convention center quite a few times for different trade shows. I got my vaccine shots at a clinic where the local hospital had taken some extra space at a college, and I also got the Pfizer vaccine. Very grateful for that, and I'm hopeful that maybe I can come join you out in Vegas in the near future.
They are going to be starting conventions up this summer. The concrete convention is going to be the first largely attended in person.
So I share your gratitude and excitement and apprehension of shots, and I'm very much looking forward to what's next as the vaccine becomes more readily available to so many. I know. For me personally, my wife falls in the category to where actually tomorrow she'll be getting her first shot. And so, it's very exciting to see what after a year of waiting leads to as people try to return to some semblance of normal. So what's next for you?
I definitely am looking forward to getting back to South Carolina where Contec's headquartered and working on some projects with my colleagues that have been temporarily on hold throughout the pandemic. And I'm looking forward to getting back out and seeing customers in person and conducting in-services out there in hospitals versus being on camera. The camera is great, and we were able to pivot and provide some great education to folks over the past year, but nothing beats being in person, making eye contact, and sort of seeing those head nods as you try to communicate this information.
So, like Michael said, we've been able to create some various resources. We've taken advantage of the virtual time. This podcast is one of them. Contec recently hosted a vaccine panel where we brought together several leading vaccine experts to discuss the COVID-19 vaccine, where we're at right now, and what it means for the population to be vaccinated and the regulations that facilities have to follow to keep the population safe. So if you'd like to watch the replay of that event, you'll be able to hear from Dr. Gregory Poland from the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Vin Gupta, who's an NBC medical correspondent, as well as Peter Pitts, who is a former FDA commissioner, and to hear their input, as well as a couple of voices from Contec. And that information will be available in the show notes. Contec has also created a vaccine resource page to try to answer all of your questions, whether that is vaccine basics to cleaning protocols. You can learn more about this life-saving innovation and Contec's role in supporting pharmaceutical manufacturers. So just a couple of the resources that we've recently created that you may find of interest on this same topic. Michael, thank you for joining us for this episode, and thank you for listening. And until next time, stay safe.